Hey guys, welcome back to Iyanla Empowers. In today's video, we will be doing a very interesting topic. I'm really excited to speak on this topic as a matter of fact. Can't wait to get into it. Before I do so, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're still in our 500s. We want to reach in our 600s, then our 700s, then our 800s, then our 900s, and then we'll be at 1K. I cannot continue without your support. I really appreciate it, and I love you all. Now let's get into the video. Now today's topic, as you can see, is pollution, global warming, and the spread of diseases. Now, today's video will be specifically targeted towards a type of pollution, and you will see how we will continue with our videos going forward as we progress into the video, but I just wanted to set that out from the beginning. Now, before we go into this specific type of pollution, it's important to note some terms, some definitions before we can get into the meat of the matter. Now, what is pollution? We always hear it. We hear this word pollution. Pollution this, pollution that. This is happening because of pollution. But what is it? Well, simply put, pollution is the introduction of harmful materials into the environment, and it's as simple as that. So pollution is when harmful materials that causes harm, has no place to be there, enters this environment or enters our environment. Usually, these harmful materials have a name, and the name is pollutants. So these harmful materials are called pollutants. So you could say pollution is when pollutants enter the environment, but then that sounds a bit, repetitive, and it doesn't give you the meaning that you need. So, alright, so it's harmful materials entering the environment. Now, we also hear a lot about the greenhouse effect, and persons tend to mix up greenhouse effect and global warming or use them interchangeably when they are actually two different things. Now, the greenhouse effect is a natural process that warms the Earth's surface when the sun's energy reaches the Earth's surface. So when radiation enters into the atmosphere, some of it is reflected back into space. However, a majority of it is absorbed into our environment, and it's re-radiated, meaning that it reaches back to us. Alright, so it's trapped in the atmosphere, it's absorbed in the atmosphere, and it's radiated back to us, it's reflected back to us by what we call greenhouse gases. So greenhouse effect is basically trapping warmth into the Earth's atmosphere. So naturally, what should happen is majority of the sun's energy should be reflected back into space, but because of these greenhouse gases and other things, of course, a lot of this energy that should be reflected back into space is being absorbed. Now, these greenhouse gases are those that contribute to the greenhouse effect by absorbing radiation. Now, carbon dioxide and chlorofluorocarbons are examples of greenhouse gases. We'll get more in depth in a minute where greenhouse gases are concerned. But let's talk about global warming. Now, global warming, different from greenhouse effect, is the gradual increase in overall temperature of the Earth's atmosphere attributed to the greenhouse effect caused by the increased levels of carbon dioxide, chlorofluorocarbons, and other pollutants. So, greenhouse effect is the natural process that warmth is trapped into the Earth's atmosphere. However, global warming is the gradual increase in temperature of the Earth's atmosphere, and this is usually documented over a century. So, for example, in the year 2000, just for example, probably the average temperature was 37. Now we realize in 2018 the average temperature is now 67. So there has been almost a double in the temperature. So there's a gradual increase. So that means in 2002, 2003, 2004, there's always been an increase occurring. That's just an example. I'm just using that example so you can understand what global warming is. Now, this increase in temperature over the years were caused by the greenhouse effect. Now, because the earth was always trapping, reabsorbing heat over a period of time, the temperatures will become warmer, and this will cause what we know as global warming, water pollution and land pollution. And sometimes persons will say noise pollution, but it isn't a main category. So it's definitely a type of pollution, but it is not a type that's been focused on as much as air, water, and land. We're definitely going to touch on noise pollution a bit, but as I said before, we'll be focusing on one specific type of pollution in this video, which will be air pollution. So we will focus mainly in this video air pollution, and then in the following videos I will do water pollution, land pollution, and so on. Now, what is air pollution? You know I love to define my terms. Well, air pollution consists of chemicals or particles in the air that can harm the health of humans, animals, and plants. It also damages buildings. So it's important to know that we are not the only persons or the only organisms, I should say, living on Earth. We have animals as well, we have our plants as well. Now, air pollution, if it affects one, more than likely it's going to affect the other. So this is the chemicals, the particles that are in the air that can harm us and harm animals and plants. It also poses damages to buildings. Now, where does this air pollution come from? Alright, where do these chemicals and these particles that are in the air that can cause us harm, where do they come from? Well, there are different ways. Pollution enters the Earth's atmosphere in many different ways. Most air pollution is created by people, so we are one of the main sources of air pollution, and this is why. Now, these emissions come from factories, cars, planes, and aerosol cans. We are the ones who own, build, operate factories. We are the ones that drive cars and make cars. We are the ones that make planes, travel in planes, and we are the one that makes aerosol cans and spray aerosol cans. And these are all sources of air pollution. These are all chemicals. These are all particles that can cause us harm. We create them, we use them, we sell them, we buy them. We as people are one of the main sources of air pollution. Now, secondhand cigarette smoke is also considered air pollution, and it's considered that because one, it's entering our environment or atmosphere, and it also consists of chemicals that can cause us harm. Now, these man-made sources of pollution are what we call anthropogenic sources. So when you hear anthropogenic sources, it's usually referred to the man-made sources of pollution. I have a picture here of factories. I just typed in on Google factories, factory emission, and this is what comes up, and we see this heavy, thick cloud of smoke emitting from the different factory plants, and this is entering into our atmosphere. And this is just one factory, and we have over 100,000 factories on Earth, and this is just one. And look how heavy and thick, and you can just see the harm and the danger from this picture. So that shows you that there is so much air pollution that is always occurring from just the factories alone, and the factories are just one source, right? So it's important to take into consideration and to note this. If you travel on Marcus Garvey Drive, that is an industrial zone right there, and we see that there's a lot of factories, and even as early in the morning we have factory plants emitting these gases and these harmful chemicals and particles into the earth. And as late as night, you see it as well. So it's happening all throughout the day. So it is very common all over the earth. I will also include a picture of India. They say India is very overpopulated and it's a great source of air pollution. But we'll go more into cities and towns soon. Now, there are also natural pollutants. Yes, you heard it right. There are also natural pollutants. So not everything is man-made. We have natural pollutants as well. And these natural pollutants include smoke from wildfires or ash from volcanoes. And these occur naturally. I have a picture of a volcano right here. And we can see the amount of ash emitting from this volcano. And you can see that it's covering all over that area. And ash usually blocks sunlight. It doesn't allow sun to pass through. It's very cloudy. Persons usually can't breathe. Stuff like that. So we can see where it affects the air. And speaking of volcanoes, we know of the La Soufrière volcano in St. Vincent that has been erupting. And we saw how the ash from that volcano affected Barbados. So usually at 12:30 in the afternoon, persons are able to see the sun or see clouds, and the place is usually bright. But at 12:30 in the afternoon, after the eruption of the volcano in Barbados, persons could not see light, could not see the sun. It was very dark. Persons could have mistaken it for 12:30 a.m. right? Because this thick cloud covered all over Barbados. It also affected the way persons breathe. They were not breathing clean air. They had to stay inside. It also affected their vehicles, stuff like that. So that's why we say there are natural pollutants. Now, air pollution is most common in large cities where emissions from many different sources are concentrated. Remember when we were speaking of India? Now, usually areas like urban areas where there's a lot of people, wouldn't say overpopulation, but there's a lot of people concentrated in a specific area. Air pollution is generally common. Sometimes mountains or tall buildings can prevent air pollution from spreading out. So they act as a barrier to air pollution. And this air pollution often appears as a cloud, making the air murky. It's usually called smog. And the word smog comes from combining the word smoke and fog. So I have a picture here. I just typed in smog on Google, and you can see where we have these tall buildings actually acting as barriers to the air pollution. And because of that, there's a concentration of this air pollution, and it looks like fog, smoke, smog, right? Now, what are the effects of air pollution? So we have it in the atmosphere. Yes, it causes harm, but what harm does it cause? What are the effects? Now, people experience a wide range of health effects from being exposed to air pollution. You can categorize them both short-term effects and long-term effects. Now, short-term effects, which are temporary, they're not long-lasting, they include illnesses such as pneumonia or bronchitis. Now, they also include discomforts such as irritation to the nose, throat, eyes, or skin. So usually if you ever been into probably an area where it's very dusty, persons usually have skin itches, like their skin always itching them long to go home to have a shower. And that's because it can cause that. Air pollution can cause discomforts like that. Sometimes it can go into their eyes. They can't see and they're rubbing their eyes all the time. Their throat may be affected and their nose. Now, air pollution can also cause headaches, dizziness, and nausea. Bad smells made from factories, garbage, or sewer systems are considered air pollution too. These odors are less serious but still unpleasant. No one wants to smell bad odors, so it's going to be unpleasant. We have a picture here of bronchitis, and we see where we have a normal bronchial tube, clean. There is nothing in there versus a bronchial tube with bronchitis where we see there's a lot of mucus. So these are one of the effects that you can get from air pollution. Now, some long-term effects of air pollution can last for years or an entire lifetime. They can even lead to a person's death. Now, long-term health effects from air pollution include heart disease, lung cancer, and respiratory diseases such as emphysema. Now, air pollution can also cause long-term damage to people's nerves, brains, kidneys, livers, and other organs. Some scientists suspect air pollutants cause birth defects. Nearly 2.5 million people die worldwide each year from the effects of outdoor and indoor air pollution. So there are a lot of persons dying annually from this air pollution. There's a lot of diseases that persons have to live with because of air pollution, and it affects so many parts of your bodies. I have a picture here of lung cancer where we can see our lungs is what we can see. There's a picture of our lungs, and they zoom in particularly to where the lung cancer is, and these are just a group of malignant cells that are built up into the lungs. They're reproducing, and they aren't getting rid of themselves, so they're right there and they're affecting a person's livelihood. They have to undergo different treatments. It's just a total damage to the person's lifestyle. And even if these persons don't smoke, they are still prone to things like lung cancer, which is primarily caused by smoking because of air pollution. Now, we heard about effects on people, but what about effects on the environment? Well, like people, animals and plants, entire ecosystems can suffer effects from air pollution. Haze, like smog, is a visible type of air pollution that obscures shapes and colors. Hazy air pollution can even muffle sounds. So we can see air pollution, and an example is haze. And I have a picture right here that shows haze in an area where the trees have been burned due to a forest fire, and that's how it looks. So it looks similar to smog, but it's not as high up, and it's not caused by buildings being barriers. Now, air pollution particles eventually fall back to earth. Now, air pollution can directly contaminate the surface of bodies of waters and soils. They can also kill crops or reduce their yields. It can kill young trees and other plants. And it's important to know that the natural pollutants can cause this as well. Even for volcanoes, ash does not remain into the air. Remember, it clears up after a period of time. Do we think that it just vanishes? Does it go into space? No, it falls right back onto Earth. It's not going to stay into the atmosphere for a long time. There's no way it can reach into space. There's no way it can just disappear. So it eventually has to fall to Earth. Now, as it falls to Earth, we realize that our cars, our homes are covered in ash, and usually a thick barrier of ash, nothing that you can easily brush away. And this can contaminate our water, because it's not just falling back on land, it's falling back into our water as well, falling back onto our agricultural soil and land. So it can kill our crops, reduce our yields, prevent us from entering our cars, damage our cars, prevent us from entering our homes, and stuff like that. It also kills our trees because this ash is foreign. And what's it doing here? Not just ash alone, but other chemicals as well fall back, and it damages our young plants and trees. It's important to know that ash also provides fertility and promotes fertility in soil for agricultural lands, but it also has other effects. Now, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide particles in air can create acid rain when they mix with water and oxygen in the atmosphere. These air pollutants come mostly from coal-fired power plants and motor vehicles. When acid rain falls to earth, it damages plants by changing soil composition, degrades water qualities in rivers, lakes, and streams. It damages crops, and it can cause buildings and monuments to decay. So acid rain isn't, oh, if you go into the rain, it's acidic, your hand's going to burn off. No, but it does contain sulfur components, nitrogen oxide components. When it mixes with water and oxygen, can cause these harmful effects. Like humans, animals can suffer health effects from exposure to air pollution. Birth defects, diseases, and lower reproductive rates have all been attributed to air pollution in animals. Now, what about global warming? So we mentioned it earlier. We're going to speak a little bit more about it now. Global warming is an environmental phenomenon caused by natural and anthropogenic air pollutions. I remember we talked about anthropogenic air pollution earlier, natural pollutions or pollutants earlier. All right. Hope you remember what that means. Now, it refers to the rising air and ocean temperatures around the world, which was mentioned earlier. This temperature rise is at least partially caused by an increase in the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases trap heat energy into the Earth's atmosphere, which should not occur because usually more of the Earth's heat escapes into space, but that's not happening anymore. I have a picture here of, we're going to call it a regular, atmosphere, regular Earth's surface to the left versus what global warming can do and is doing to our Earth on the right. So we can do some comparisons here. So we see that the tree on the left is green, flourishing, beautiful. We have grass, which shows you rainfall, good weather. We have some butterflies, we have some sun shining, nice clouds. The day is bright versus on the right, it gives you the view of like a desert. So we see there's no grass, the soil is dry, there's no leaves on the trees, the place looks so arid on the right, and it's orange and it's just hot. We can just feel the heat in the picture on the right. And persons will say these are effects of global warming. Now, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas that has had the biggest effect on global warming. So this is the main contributor. Now, carbon dioxide is emitted into the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels, the coal, the gasoline, and the natural gas. So persons burn our coal to power the machines in our factories. They also use our gasoline and natural gas as sources of electricity, sources of energy to operate our factories, usually our factories, of course other things as well, but usually to power our factories. Humans have come to rely on fossil fuels to power cars and planes, heat homes, and run factories. Now, doing these things pollutes the air with carbon dioxide. Now I have a question. When you put gas into your car, all right, gasoline, which is one of the effects of burning our fossil fuels, that's what we get, gasoline. When we put gas in our cars, where do we think this gas goes? So after driving for a couple of days, you full it tank with gas, you drive for a couple of days, and you realize you have to fill it again because it's on E, it's empty now. Where do we think this gas go? It emits from our cars as harmful gas that contribute to air pollution, right? From our mufflers that's at the back of our cars, it emits from our cars, contributing to air pollution. So now we see that a lot of our cars don't really have mufflers anymore. Well, these are for our newer cars. They don't really have mufflers, so there's no escaping or emission of harmful gases. So they're building their cars a bit more safe now, protecting the environment and so on. So they have adapted to what needs to happen and they are working on it. So they have green cars, they call them, So we have some cars that don't really have the mufflers anymore. Some cars don't even use gas anymore. They are plugged in, right? So you can charge them because they're taken into consideration as a brand to limit air pollution. So for example, we have our Teslas that usually you have to plug them in. They don't operate with gas, and that is to limit air pollution. This is because the fossil fuels that are used to power the cars, the planes, to heat the homes, to run the factories, they pollute the air with carbon dioxide, which we said before is a main contributor to greenhouse effect. Now we have other greenhouse gases emitted by natural and artificial sources, such as methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gases. Now methane is a major emission from coal plants and agricultural processes. Nitrous oxide is a common emission from industrial factories, agriculture, and the burning of fossil fuels in cars. Fluorinated gases, such as hydrofluorocarbons, are emitted by industries. Fluorinated gases are often used instead of gases, such as chlorofluorocarbons. Now, chlorofluorocarbons, called CFCs, have been outlawed in many places because they deplete the ozone layer. So we see there is no longer any use of CFCs as they deplete it. So there were some refrigerators that used CFCs, refrigerants, usually to power not just refrigerators but also air conditioners. They were banned, so they don't utilize CFCs anymore. All right. Now that wraps up air pollution. So we spoke on what it was, the sources of it, the effects that it had on humans, and not just humans but also the environment, and also a bit on global warming, because the primary source of global warming, of course, is air pollution. I really hope that you learned a lot in today's video. Please look out for land pollution and water pollution in the coming weeks. Very excited. I will see you guys in the next video. Remember, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We want to get there by, let's say, May or the end of May. Please share this video with a family member, with a friend. Really appreciate you all. See you in the next video. Bye guys.